My in-law idolized my wife's ex, so I invited him to dinner. What he said finally shattered their delusion. My wife's response took me by surprise. I'm a 32-year-old man, married to my wife Sarah, for just over a year now. We dated for 3 years before tying the knot, and during that time, I thought I got to know her family well, or at least I believed I did. What I didn't realize at first was that I wasn't just dating Sarah, I was also being quietly measured against someone who had already come and gone from her life, her ex-boyfriend Liam. Liam and Sarah were together for 5 years before they broke up. That's a long time, and I understand that people leave impressions, but I've never seen anything like this. I started hearing about Liam early on. Stories from her parents would surface casually, how he helped fix the roof once, or how he made the best mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving. Her sister once mentioned how Liam used to organize the family's summer hikes. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal, just small talk and casual references. The first real red flag appeared at our engagement dinner. Her father raised his glass and said, "Liam always had a plan," then glanced at me and added, "You're a little more idealistic." I laughed along because what else could I do in that moment? But it was awkward. That was when I realized they hadn't really moved on from Liam. Things didn't get better from there. Sarah's mother would find ways to slip Liam into conversations. She'd say things like, "It's great that you work for yourself, but Liam was already in management at your age." Or Liam always kept things so organized. He even planned their grocery runs. I didn't react. I thought if I stayed polite and focused on Sarah, they'd eventually let go of the past. The holidays were worse. At Thanksgiving, her brother joked that Liam used to get up early to baste the turkey, then looked at me like he was waiting for a reaction. When the Christmas lights shorted out, her sister casually said, "Liam would have already fixed this." These weren't just memories, they were constant comparisons. Before our wedding, Sarah stood up to them. She told them they had to stop comparing me to her ex. They apologized and promised to do better. To be fair, for a couple of months, they backed off. But by the time spring rolled around, it started creeping back in, more subtle this time. Her mom shared stories from the good old days, and her dad mentioned how Liam used to join them on volunteer projects. They never said anything outright rude, but the message was clear: I wasn't him. We moved cities last year when Sarah got a job offer she couldn't pass up. I thought the distance would help. Less contact, less pressure. But even during video calls, the comparisons persisted. Her father once asked if I'd thought about going corporate for more stability. Her mother asked Sarah if I was okay with her being the breadwinner. Then came the line that stuck with me. Her sister, laughing, said, "Liam never would have let her lift a finger around the house. Most of the time, Sarah had my back. She told them to knock it off and reminded them we were happy. But sometimes, she laughed along with them, probably to keep the peace." That stung more than I wanted to admit. It made me feel like I was alone in this weird competition I never signed up for. The tipping point came during our last visit to her parents' place. We walked into the living room, and there, on the mantel, was a framed photo of Sarah and Liam at a New Year's Eve party, arms around each other, smiling like they were still a couple. Her mother saw me looking and said, "Oh, that one just brings back so many memories. Don't mind me, it's just nostalgia." That night, I asked Sarah if her family still talked to Liam. She hesitated, then admitted her mom still emailed him sometimes, just to check in. That's when it clicked. They weren't just reminiscing, they were keeping him involved, even if only in the background. It was as if they never broke up with him. I sat with that for a couple of days, trying to decide what to do. Then I looked him up. Liam was engaged now, living 2 hours away, working in tech, and apparently doing well. That's when I got an idea. I wasn't going to argue with her family anymore. I wasn't going to ask them to stop talking about Liam or demand they take down the photo. Instead, I wanted to bring Liam into the room, not as a ghost of relationships past, but as the real, current person he had become, not out of revenge or to humiliate anyone, but to hold up a mirror to this version of him they were obsessed with. The Liam they talked about didn't exist anymore, and maybe if they saw that, they'd finally let him go. I found Liam's profile through a mutual connection on a professional site. His profile picture looked recent. He had a beard now, a bit more polished than in the old photos her family kept. I sent a short, direct message, introducing myself as Sarah's husband, and asking if he'd be open to a quick chat. He replied the same day, his message polite, even warm. He said he'd heard of me through Sarah's family, and hoped life was treating us well. He didn't sound bitter, if anything. He seemed curious why I was reaching out. We got on a brief call that evening. It wasn't long. I told him I had no hard feelings, but that her family still treated him like he was part of the picture. Liam admitted it used to make him uncomfortable too, Even after their breakup, her parents had stayed in touch. Holiday greetings, random check-ins, the kind of thing most people move on from. He said he didn't mind, but it always felt like they were more invested in the idea of him than the reality. That gave me the opening to float the idea. There was a family dinner planned the next weekend, a big one. Sarah's parents, her siblings, their partners, and a couple of family friends. I cautiously asked Liam if he'd consider stopping by briefly, knowing it might be uncomfortable. Not to cause drama, just to see what would happen when the past walked into the same room as the present. He paused, then said he was curious how they'd act if they saw him in person after all this time. He agreed to come. When I told Sarah, she stared at me like she hadn't heard me right. I explained the plan, how it came together. She didn't say much at first, then nodded and said if Liam was okay with it, she wouldn't stop it. She didn't warn anyone. The dinner was at her parents' house. Long table, mismatched chairs pulled from every room, her mother's usual spread of roasted chicken, baked potatoes, and too many side dishes. Everyone was seated halfway through their drinks when Liam walked in through the back door. The reaction was instant. Her father stood up so fast his chair tipped, walked across the room, and hugged Liam like he hadn't seen his own son in years. Her mother clapped her hands and told someone to make space at the table. Her sister looked shocked, then excited. Her brother gave him a quick nod. Liam smiled and greeted them like he was just passing through on a friendly visit. Sarah's father opened a drawer in the china cabinet and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. Not just any bottle, but the one he'd said he was saving for a special moment. He poured Liam a glass, slid it across the table, and said something about how it had been too long and how some guests were worth opening the good stuff for. I didn't say much. I watched. Sarah stayed quiet too, sitting beside me with her hands folded, her face giving nothing away. But every time someone brought up a story about Liam, I saw the tension in her shoulders build. Her sister asked if Liam remembered the hiking trip to that forest park, the one with the broken bridge. He nodded, and her mother jumped in, asking him to retell the story. Liam went along giving the same details I'd already heard secondhand. How he rigged a makeshift path with fallen branches, how they laughed all the way back to the car. That's when Sarah finally spoke. She didn't raise her voice, just said clear and flat, Liam isn't family anymore. She didn't ask them to stop, just reminded them that things had changed. Her father turned to her and said, "Some people leave a mark. You don't just erase that kind of history." Liam looked like he wanted to sink into his chair. After a pause, he started telling a different story about how, back when he and Sarah were dating, they used to argue about how much her parents tried to steer her choices. He said it lightly, like a memory, but it changed the mood at the table. The conversation slowed. I asked Liam about his fiancée. He smiled, pulled out his phone, and showed us a couple of pictures. Her on a mountain trail, then with a dog at a park, another at a formal dinner. Her name was Carla. They looked happy. He scrolled for a second, then turned to Sarah and me. He said Sarah had clearly found someone who fit her life better now, and added that he hoped her family would respect that. Nobody replied right away. Her father looked down at his plate. Her mother stood to refill drinks that didn't need refilling. Her sister grabbed her phone and acted busy. Liam tucked his phone away and reached for his glass. We finished the meal in polite silence. No more stories, no more memories. After dessert, Liam thanked them for dinner and left quietly through the front door. No one said a word about it that night. After the dinner, Sarah and I went upstairs without saying much. We sat on the edge of the bed for a while. There wasn't a big talk or argument, just a quiet agreement that the evening had gone further than either of us expected. Liam had handled it better than we thought. He didn't stir anything up, wasn't smug, answered their questions, stayed polite, and left without causing a scene. About an hour later, I got a message from him, a short note saying he hoped it gave me some clarity and that her family still freaked him out a bit. I didn't reply right away. I showed it to Sarah, and she just nodded. The next morning, Sarah's phone buzzed with a long message from her mother. She was upset we hadn't told them Liam was coming, saying it was unfair and that she would have liked time to prepare, not emotionally but literally, to set an extra plate and make his favorite dessert. Her father didn't text, he called. I picked up. His voice was light at first, joking that I had guts for pulling a move like that, but the joke didn't land. There was something tight underneath, like he was trying to stay calm. I didn't engage, just said we thought it was time they saw Liam as a real person again, not a memory. Later that day, Sarah's sister posted a photo from the dinner, a full group shot including Liam, which she shared without acknowledging how disruptive his presence had been. The caption read, "The more things change, the more they stay the same." Comments started popping up from cousins and family friends, all vague, all strange. I didn't argue. I left a comment, glad I finally met the legend everyone talks about. A couple of hours later, Sarah's brother messaged me privately. It wasn't friendly. He said I was disrespectful and accused me of trying to cause a rift in the family. He told me to stop competing with someone who wasn't even in the picture anymore. I didn't respond. I showed Sarah. She blocked him. A week went by and nothing else came in. Then we joined a scheduled video call with her parents and siblings, meant to be a catch-up. Her mother had planned to show off the new garden layout, but I brought it up first. I said I was tired of being compared to someone who wasn't part of their lives anymore. I wasn't asking them to forget the past, but I wanted the present to matter more than a version of someone they hadn't spoken to properly in years. Her father leaned back and said I was overthinking it, that it wasn't about comparisons. They just liked Liam, no big deal. Her mother added that Liam had always been memorable, and maybe that's just how some people are, they leave stronger impressions. That's when Sarah stopped nodding along. She said, straight and clear, if you can't respect our relationship and keep dragging Liam into every gathering, we're done showing up. No more holidays, no more birthdays, no more family dinners. If you want Liam so badly, invite him instead. Her mother started crying, saying we were trying to erase their memories, that they weren't allowed to talk about good times anymore, that cutting them off over a few stories was cruel. About an hour after the call, someone else chimed in unexpectedly. Liam had found the photo Sarah's sister posted and left a comment, "They've moved on. Maybe you all should too." The post was deleted within minutes. Not hidden, deleted completely. Then Sarah's sister blocked both of us. No message, just gone. We didn't reach out again. That night, I told Sarah I didn't want to spend another holiday pretending everything was fine. I didn't want to sit at a table with people who kept dragging the past into the room. She agreed, no argument. She picked up her phone and sent a message to both her parents, short and to the point. We were taking space and wouldn't attend any more gatherings until they stopped turning Liam into a measuring stick. No one replied. No one called. For once, that silence said something. Sarah sent the message a few days after the video call. She didn't soften it, no vague wording. She wrote clearly that we were stepping back from all family events moving forward because of the constant comparisons and disrespect toward our marriage. She ended by saying we weren't open to discussion unless something changed. Then she turned off her phone for the rest of the night. For 4 days, there was silence. On the 5th day, her father responded with a single line, "Guess you made your choice." Nothing else, no explanation, no apology. A few hours later, her sister sent a string of messages blaming me for everything. She said Sarah used to be close with her family until I got in her head, calling her disloyal and selfish. Her brother followed with a shorter message, but it was even more direct. He said she was destroying the family for someone who would never measure up to what they had before. Sarah didn't reply to either. She blocked both numbers. That was final. No calls, no texts, no way to reach us. We spent the next holiday with my parents. It wasn't fancy, just dinner at home, a walk around the neighborhood, and some board games after dessert. The difference in energy was impossible to ignore. No tension, no one bringing up exes, no acting like we were pretending to be happy. Just a normal, quiet day. While we were there, I got a message from Liam. It was unexpected. He said Sarah's father had emailed him out of the blue. The email wasn't long, but it was strange. He asked if Liam wanted to meet up for a drink next time he was in town, then wrote in the last sentence that he still believed Liam was the best man Sarah ever had. Liam attached a screenshot and said he wasn't planning to reply. He said it creeped him out more than anything. Sarah paused, then opened her voice recorder and sent her father a message, controlled but firm. She told him never to contact Liam again, not for any reason, not through email, phone, or anyone else. She didn't ask, she told him. She screenshot the message, then deleted the thread. A few days later, one of Sarah's old friends from her hometown sent her a photo. Her parents had hosted a small dinner with neighbors. In the background, on the mantel above the fireplace, was the same framed photo of Sarah and Liam, the one her mother used to keep tucked away, supposedly for nostalgia. It was back-centered, visible, and sitting beside the family photo from our wedding. That night, Sarah and I agreed we were done trying to handle this gently. We weren't going to explain ourselves anymore or ask for fairness. Sarah opened her laptop and wrote a letter. Not an invitation for change, but a record. She wrote everything, from the first time they compared me to Liam, to the dinner where they treated him like he never left. She included the stories they repeated, the photo on the mantel, the whiskey bottle they saved for him. She wrote about how they laughed at our relationship like it was a phase, how they tried to involve Liam without her consent. She ended with a sentence. She no longer recognized them as a safe part of her life. We didn't wait for a reply, but one came, a long, tearful voicemail from her mother. She said Sarah was being manipulated, that she used to be close to them, that it wasn't fair for someone else, meaning me, to turn her against her family. She said she didn't recognize her daughter anymore, then cried and hung up. Sarah didn't respond. She blocked both her parents. That was the last open channel. Her siblings were already cut off. Now her parents were too. No calls, no texts, no emails, nothing. We didn't hope they'd understand. We didn't wait for a new version of them. We moved forward. We knew we couldn't make them change, but we could stop giving them access to our peace. We didn't owe them a seat at our table just because they were related by blood. The more they held on to the past they wanted, the clearer it became they had no space for the present. We made one more decision that night. No more check-ins, no more updates, no more attempts to loop them back in. We were done playing roles in someone else's version of our life. For the first time, the silence that followed didn't feel like something missing. It felt like the volume had finally been turned down. With most of her family blocked on phones and social media, Sarah and I focused on something we hadn't done in a long time. Just us. We found a couples therapist nearby and booked weekly sessions. We didn't go to fix anything between us. We went to unpack what had been done by others. Most of the work centered on Sarah. The therapist asked about patterns in her family, how decisions were made growing up, how much weight her parents' opinions carried. Sarah talked about how being a good daughter meant agreeing, adjusting, and keeping the peace. Somewhere along the way, she was made to believe that choosing her own path, especially a partner they didn't approve of, meant turning her back on them. A few weeks into therapy, I brought up something we'd put off for over a year. Our honeymoon. We had skipped it after the wedding because of work and family commitments. Now felt like the right time. No updates, no check-ins, no need to explain why we were taking time for ourselves. We booked it quietly. No social media posts, no shared calendars. We turned off everything except travel apps and emergency contacts. For 10 full days we didn't hear from anyone except hotel staff and the occasional tour guide. There was no drama waiting in our inbox when we got back. No missed calls, no guilt. That changed within a week. An old friend from Sarah's hometown called one afternoon. She'd heard Sarah had cut off her entire family for a man. That was the line being passed around. The story was that I had pressured Sarah into blocking her parents, isolating her, and brainwashing her against them. The friend didn't ask for our side. She relayed what she'd heard and ended the call. Sarah blocked her without a word. Not long after, Sarah received an email from one of her old college professors. He wrote that her mother had contacted him, saying Sarah wasn't herself and might need help. He wasn't sure what to believe, but reached out in case there was truth to it. Sarah thanked him, explained the situation clearly, and assured him she was okay. That was when it stopped being just gossip. Now it was active. Her mother wasn't just telling stories, she was reaching out to people from Sarah's past, painting a picture of crisis. The professor hadn't spoken to her in over 5 years, and now he was being asked to intervene. We wrote one final message through a third party, not directly to her parents. We sent it through Sarah's aunt, who had stayed neutral and out of the drama. The message was short. If her parents continued spreading misinformation or contacting others on Sarah's behalf, we would take legal action for harassment and defamation. A few days later, Liam messaged me. His fiancée had received an email from Sarah's mother with the subject line, "Family Brunch." Inside was an invitation to come by for a Sunday meal and reconnect with everyone. No mention of the past drama, no mention of Sarah, just a casual invite as if nothing had happened. They didn't reply, they blocked her immediately. That was the confirmation we needed. It wasn't about reconnecting, it was about controlling the narrative, making sure someone still bought into the idea that Liam belonged more than I did, that Sarah had made a mistake, that there was still time to fix things. I started collecting everything, screenshots, emails, message logs. I brought it to our lawyer, who reviewed it and said we were within our rights to file a cease and desist. We didn't send it yet, but we had it ready, documented, and signed. Around the same time, Sarah walked into a government office and started the process to legally change her last name to mine. It wasn't something I asked for or that we'd talked about recently, but she said she was ready. Not to erase anything, but to mark where the old story ended and the new one began. We didn't tell anyone, just kept it between us and our lawyer to ensure privacy. We didn't announce or celebrate it, but when she received the paperwork, she framed a copy and placed it on our bookshelf next to a photo of us on our first day in our new city. A quiet line had been drawn, and this time it wasn't in chalk. Not long after Sarah's name change became official, we received an envelope from a law office we didn't recognize. Inside was a cease and desist letter from her parents, claiming Sarah had defamed them through public misrepresentation and damaged their reputation among family and community members. The language was formal, but the intent was clear. They weren't ready to let go. They wanted control back. We brought the letter to our lawyer. He read it, shook his head, and said it was more a scare tactic than a serious legal threat. There was no real case. He filed it with everything else we documented: screenshots, emails, the brunch invite to Liam's fiancée, the message to Sarah's professor. On his advice, we sent a formal cease and desist letter back. The message was simple: any further attempts to interfere in our lives, contacting people from our past, using Sarah's name or likeness, or creating false narratives, would be treated as harassment and pursued legally. Her parents replied with one line: "Understood. We will no longer contact you." We didn't believe it meant anything would stop, but it was something we could point to, an official paper trail. A few weeks later, we heard from a mutual acquaintance from Sarah's hometown. Her parents were organizing a community fundraiser at their house, handing out printed flyers around town. On the flyer were photos, one of Sarah as a child, and one of her with Liam from a winter event when they were dating. No permission, no context, just thrown on a sheet of paper like nothing had happened. I took a photo of the flyer and sent it to our lawyer. He acted fast, sending a takedown notice to the print shop listed on the flyer, demanding any remaining materials using Sarah's image be removed immediately. The shop complied without pushback. Within days, the fundraiser was canceled. No explanation, no apology, no challenge from her family. Then Liam messaged me. It was short, probably the last message we'll ever exchange. He said they were still stuck in a fantasy and that he was glad we were both out of it. Not long after, his fiancée posted on her public account, "Some families don't preserve memories, they preserve myths." The post gained traction in online circles. People reposted it, commented about their own experiences. It wasn't directed at anyone, but the timing wasn't subtle. That same week, Sarah and I sat down with my parents and told them everything. Not just the latest developments, but the full story, the comparisons, the blocked numbers, the dinner with Liam, the messages, the fundraiser. They listened without interrupting. When we finished, my mother said she wished we'd told them sooner. My father nodded and said he was proud of how we handled it. They didn't give advice, they just made space for us. A few days later, we got a delivery, no return address, no sender name. Inside was a single item, the framed photo of Sarah and Liam from that New Year's party, the one that used to sit on her parents' mantel. No note, no message. We didn't need one. We handed the box to our lawyer and installed cameras around the house that week. Motion sensors, front, back, and side yards. We logged the delivery as part of the growing case file, not because we expected it to go to court, but because we weren't taking chances. That week, Sarah started writing again, not hiding behind fiction or generalization. She wrote about what it means to be treated like a placeholder for someone else's dream, how comparisons, even well-meaning ones, can corrode relationships. She wrote about what happens when a family idolizes an ex so much they forget the person standing in front of them. She posted the first entry quietly on a new blog. No names, no locations, just real stories in her own words. It wasn't about revenge, going viral, or getting people to believe her. It was about reclaiming the space taken from her, piece by piece over the years. One of Sarah's blog posts, titled "The Ex My Parents Never Broke Up With," started making rounds online. It wasn't promoted, no tags or viral pushes, but it resonated. People in family trauma forums shared it, quoted it, and commented that it captured something they couldn't put into words. The post described how families sometimes stay emotionally attached to former partners long after the relationship ends, overshadowing the person their child chooses. A few weeks later, a journalist reached out through the blog's contact form. She was working on a piece about parent-child enmeshment and families who romanticize past relationships. She wanted real-life stories, not drama. Sarah agreed to speak under anonymity. No names, no photos, just voice notes through a secure channel. She answered questions, gave context, and kept it focused on patterns, not individuals. 2 days after the interview, a new message came through the blog's contact form. It had no name or email, just a sentence: "You'll regret airing this out." The wording wasn't dramatic, but it was meant to rattle. Our lawyer traced the IP. It bounced through a few masks, but the last unmasked hop led to a server block tied to a company where Sarah's father had worked years ago. It wasn't definitive, but the detail was flagged and added to the legal file. We didn't respond or mention it publicly. Later that week, HR at Sarah's job called her and they'd received an anonymous complaint claiming she was unstable and publishing personal stories online that made her a workplace risk. HR reviewed her blog, asked basic questions, and told her not to worry. They had no concerns. She was cleared without issue. In fact, one HR rep privately told her they admired how well she'd put her experiences into words. Then Liam messaged again. Someone had contacted him through a work channel, asking vague but probing questions about Sarah's mental health, past relationships, and family background. He blocked the sender and let me know. He wasn't shaken, but it added another piece to the pattern. A few days later, Sarah received a package at work, no return address. Inside were printed screenshots of her blog pages written from honesty. Across them, in black marker, someone had scrawled words like liar, manipulated, and homewrecker. The handwriting didn't match anything we could confirm. There were no fingerprints. But the message was clear. We filed a police report that day, then upgraded everything at home. New locks, external cameras, motion-activated lights, and an alarm system linked to our phones. We didn't make a fuss, we took precautions. Our therapist helped us see it from a broader angle. The behavior didn't start when Sarah wrote the blog. It started when her parents realized they couldn't control the narrative anymore. The stories they told themselves and others were breaking down, and instead of reflecting, they reacted. Not directly, but through whispers and anonymous noise. That week, I wrote something for myself, not a post or open letter, just a document on my desktop titled The Stand-In. It was about what it felt like to be a placeholder in someone else's script, treated not as a person but as the wrong answer to their nostalgia. I didn't show it to Sarah, I didn't need to. It wasn't for release, it was for peace. A few nights later, our motion lights picked something up. The camera feed showed a person near our mailbox at 2:15 in the morning, hood up, hands in pockets. From the build and posture, the figure looked like one of Sarah's uncles, someone close to her father who used to work in landscaping. But the video was too grainy. No license plate, no usable face shot. We gave the footage to the police. They marked it and added it to the ongoing case. Patrols in our neighborhood were quietly increased. Our lawyer added the incident to the timeline and began drafting a harassment case in case we chose to escalate. After that, Sarah made her blog private, taking down any post that could connect her identity to her story. The material wasn't deleted. It was saved but no longer public. We pulled back from social media, scrubbing metadata, unlinking emails, removing identifiers. We updated privacy settings, removed old photos, changed usernames, nothing loud, just a steady retreat. We kept close friends updated. Everyone else didn't need access. We weren't hiding. We were done offering ourselves for public dissection. Not everything needs to be visible to be true. Some peace is found in shadows, where those who never deserved your story can't rewrite it. The last real attempt to pull Sarah back came through someone we hadn't thought about in years, her old piano teacher. The email was polite, but the message was clear. Her mother had reached out, claiming Sarah was in a controlling marriage and isolated from everyone who cared about her. He felt obligated to check in, though he hadn't spoken to her since she was 17. We didn't reply. We forwarded the email to our lawyer, who added it to the harassment log, already growing thicker by the month. That same week, something arrived by mail, a handwritten card from Liam and his fiancée. There was no return address, but we recognized the handwriting. It was short, just a few sentences on a blank card. We see you. We support you. You're not alone. They didn't need to say more. We kept the card tucked in a kitchen drawer. The next blow came online. A fake social media account appeared under Sarah's name, using an old college photo of hers. It posted vague, cryptic messages about emotional abuse, power imbalances, and being silenced. Within hours, mutuals noticed and flagged it to us. We reported the account, and within a day, the platform took it down. We documented everything, saved screenshots, and kept it logged. A couple of days later, my employer received an anonymous message claiming I was involved in an online smear campaign and encouraging them to review my conduct. There was no name, just a forwarded link to one of Sarah's now-removed blog posts and twisted claims about my behavior. I brought in our lawyer's documentation, showed the full timeline. HR nodded and said they had my back. That moment made it obvious. This wasn't just obsession, it was retaliation. Sarah deleted everything, every post, every trace of her blog, every link connecting her name to her writing. She backed up what mattered and shut the rest down. She said she wasn't done telling her story, she was just done letting the wrong people see it. Not long after, Sarah got a message through an old backup email. A cousin she hadn't spoken to in nearly 10 years reached out. She'd seen the signs, put the pieces together, and decided to speak up. She said she'd cut ties with that side of the family years ago after going through something similar. Guilt, emotional control, and a quiet campaign to turn people against her. She said it didn't surprise her that Sarah was now on the receiving end. That message meant more than any apology could. A few weeks later, a trauma recovery podcast reached out through a mutual contact. They wanted Sarah to speak anonymously on an episode about family roles, idolized exes, and long-term manipulation. She agreed under conditions: no names, no photos, audio editing to protect her identity. She recorded the episode in one take, speaking calmly from notes written on a grocery receipt. When it went live, it didn't go viral. It didn't need to. It sparked quiet conversations in small online circles. People commented that they recognized the dynamic, that no one had described it that way before. Some mentioned parents still sending birthday cards to exes years later. Others shared stories of family members trying to reconnect them with people they'd left behind. Messages trickled into a separate support inbox we created. Some were long, some just a sentence: "This helped me more than you know." We didn't answer every message, but we read them all. There was no need to explain our side anymore, no need to prove anything. For the first time, we didn't feel like the strange ones. We weren't the only ones who'd lived a version of this. We didn't need to shout that we were okay, we just were. No cameras, no posts, no forced smiles, just mornings with coffee, walks with our dog, and days where nothing dramatic happened. That quiet, steady happiness didn't need an audience. It was ours. 6 months passed without a word, no messages, no mail, no calls through mutuals. Then a small hand-addressed package showed up at our new address. The handwriting was neat, old-fashioned, from Sarah's grandmother, her mother's mother. The return label listed a rural address we didn't recognize. Inside was a letter, folded carefully, and a bundle of old photographs tied with a faded ribbon. The letter wasn't long. Her grandmother apologized without asking for anything. She wrote that she'd stayed quiet too long and seen more than she'd admitted. She said Sarah hadn't deserved the mistreatment she'd endured. The letter didn't excuse anyone or ask for reunion. It confirmed what we knew but hadn't heard from anyone inside the family. Among the photos were ones from Sarah's childhood: birthdays, holidays, summer camping trips. A few included Liam. Her grandmother circled one with a pencil and wrote on the back, "This was the plan they never let go of." We didn't need details, but Sarah called her grandmother and asked to meet. The visit lasted under an hour. It wasn't heavy. There were no tears. Her grandmother offered no defense for anyone else. Sarah thanked her for the letter, forgave her, and left without reopening any door beyond that one. Weeks later, through a neutral family contact, we learned Liam and his wife had left the country. They moved abroad, changed numbers, no announcement, no forwarding address. From what we heard, they cut off extended family entirely. A clean break. Not long after, Sarah and I did something similar. We sold the apartment, packed quietly, and moved to a different state. But somehow, a few people from her past still found out. New house, new licenses, new phone numbers. We changed every point of contact, emails, emergency records, even the pet registration. We didn't post about the move. We vanished from every traceable corner they could reach. We weren't just leaving people. We were leaving the versions of us they'd built in their heads, the ones we were always compared against, the ones they tried to reshape us into. We didn't take those expectations with us. In the first month after the move, I wrote something for myself, then submitted it anonymously to a literary journal under a pseudonym. It was a personal essay about what it feels like to be the person who replaced someone a family never let go of. It wasn't an attack, just reflection. It got published in a small column. That was enough. I didn't share it with anyone except Sarah. Later that year, Sarah was invited through a private connection to advise a nonprofit working with adults navigating estrangement. No interviews, no speaking events, just reviewing resources and developing support programs. She said yes and kept it off social media. The work stayed quiet but steady. On the 1-year anniversary of our last contact with her family, we invited close friends over for dinner. No speeches, no toasts, just good food, warm lights and soft music. A small moment that reminded us what peace looked like. Before everyone left, a friend helped us hang a framed piece in the hallway, one of Sarah's blog entries, written before she made the site private. The title was simple: I belong to my own story. That same month, we adopted a rescue dog, medium-sized, rough around the edges, nervous around loud sounds. He took a few days to come out of his shell. We named him Chance. He followed us from room to room, always checking we were still there. We joked he had the same trust issues we did, but day by day, he settled. Some stories don't end with reconciliation, a breakthrough, a letter that fixes everything, or a final confrontation that explains the pain. Some stories just stop. Ours didn't stop with a scream or a slammed door. It stopped with a firm, silent boundary, a choice not to continue a cycle we didn't start. In that quiet ending, we built something lasting, not perfect, but fully ours.